Every December, Ogun State praised the billionaire who fed the poor with free rice, but no one noticed that the bags were warm, the grain smelled faintly of blood, and the generosity was never meant to save lives, only to complete a ritual that would soon turn a joyful Christmas into a screaming market square soaked in horror. In Ogun State, Christmas did not truly begin until Chief Adedeo Ekinwell arrived at the market square. Long before the first carol echoed from church loudspeakers or fireworks cracked the dry December air, the people already knew the date. They counted it not by calendar, but by rumor. Have you heard? He's coming again this year. The rice billionaire. Chief Adedeo's name carried weight, heavy like gold, sharp like fear, sweet like hope. To the poor, he was a savior. To politicians, a silent kingmaker. To pastors and imams, a generous donor whose offerings arrived without questions. And to the hungry masses of Ogun State, he was simply the man who never failed to share rice at Christmas. No one remembered when it started. Some said it began the year his wealth exploded overnight. Others said it was after his wife died mysteriously, or after he returned from a long journey into the interior forests bordering Ogun and Oyo states. What everyone agreed on was this. Every Christmas, without fail, thousands of bags of rice appeared, neatly stacked in the market square, free for anyone who could carry one. Women woke before dawn to queue. Men abandoned their farms for the day. Children followed their mothers barefoot, bowls in hand, hoping for leftovers. Hunger did not respect celebration, and Chief Adedeo knew that. That was why he was loved. Or so it seemed. The market square of Itolekan, one of the oldest trading centers in Ogun State, buzzed with anticipation as Christmas Eve dawned. Stalls that once sold palm oil and dried fish now made space for sacks of rice stacked like walls. Red, white, and green bags, foreign brands and local ones, rose higher than the market roofs. Standing beside them was Femi Adebola, a young man in his late 20s, lean and soft-spoken, wearing a faded volunteer vest. He was one of the organizers recruited by the local council to help manage the crowd. Femi had grown up in Itolekan. He knew hunger intimately, the kind that twisted the stomach and darkened the mind. That was why he admired Chief Adedeo. Anyone who fed the poor, especially during Christmas, deserved respect. At least, that was what he believed. Femi, a woman called, waving from the crowd. Make sure my bag is intact. Oh. Last year, rats entered my own before I reached house. Femi smiled politely. Mama Kemi, don't worry. This one is clean. Mama Kemi laughed, exposing gaps in her teeth. God will bless Chief Adedeo. That man is not human. The words lingered in the air longer than she intended. Not human. Femi shook off the thought and continued arranging the bags. As he did, he noticed something odd. Some of the sacks felt heavier than they should. Rice was rice, he had carried it all his life. But these ones pressed into his palms with a strange resistance, as though the weight was not evenly spread. He shifted one bag, then another. Maybe foreign rice, he muttered. Yet when he leaned closer, a faint smell crept into his nose. Not the usual dusty scent of grain. This was metallic. Sharp. Like rust, or old coins. Or blood. He straightened quickly, glancing around. The market was too loud, too alive for dark thoughts. Drummers were setting up near the entrance. Traders argued. Children laughed. Christmas music blasted from a nearby shop. This was not the place for suspicion. A convoy of black SUVs rolled in just then, silencing the noise almost instantly. Conversations died mid-sentence. Heads turned. Chief Adedeo had arrived. He stepped out slowly, dressed in flowing white agbada embroidered with gold thread. His cap sat firmly on his head, casting a shadow over eyes that rarely blinked. He smiled, a practiced smile that never quite reached his pupils. Cheers erupted. Boba. Boba. God bless you. You will never lack. Chief Adedeo raised his hands, soaking in the praise like heat from the sun. Cameras flashed. Local bloggers rushed forward. A pastor pushed through the crowd, already preparing a prayer. My people, Chief Adedeo began, his voice calm and deep, amplified by speakers. Christmas is a time of love. A time to share. As long as God blesses me, I will bless you. Thunderous applause followed. Femi clapped too, though his palms felt dry. As Chief Adedeo walked past him, their eyes met briefly. For a split second, Femi felt cold, as if something unseen had brushed against his skin. The billionaire's gaze lingered, then moved on. Behind Chief Adedeo stood men nobody could describe clearly later. Tall, quiet, dressed in dark clothes despite the heat. They did not smile. They did not clap. They watched. An elderly woman shuffled forward suddenly, leaning on a crooked stick. Her hair was white like ash, her face lined deeper than dry earth. Some people recognized her, Aya Monarchy, the herbalist who lived at the edge of town. She pointed at the rice. Food given with blood, she croaked, we return with tears. The crowd erupted in laughter. Old woman, rest. Go and sleep. Are you not hungry too? Chief Adedeo chuckled softly. Mama, Christmas is not a time for fear. Take rice and be happy. Aya Monarchy spat on the ground. Not all gifts are blessings, she said, turning away. Femi watched her go, unease twisting his stomach. The sharing began. Bags moved fast, too fast. Hands grabbed. People pushed. Sweat soaked the air. Rice disappeared into wheelbarrows, baskets, and the backs of motorcycles. Joy mixed with desperation. Then one bag slipped. It fell from a truck, hitting the ground with a dull, unnatural thud. The sack tore slightly at the corner. A dark red stain bloomed through the white fabric. Someone screamed. Is that blood? The crowd froze. Femi's heart slammed against his chest as he stepped forward. He bent down, touched the stain with trembling fingers. It was warm. Too warm. Before anyone could stop him, the torn opening widened. Something round pressed against the fabric from inside. Then it rolled out. And the market square of Itolikon would never be the same again. But that was only the beginning. For 3 heartbeats, silence ruled the market square. Not the peaceful kind, this silence was sharp, suffocating, as though the air itself had been sliced open. Every eye fixed on the ground where the torn sack lay. The red stain spread slowly, seeping into the dust like a living thing searching for roots. Then the screams came. Women dropped their bags and ran. Children cried, clinging to wrappers and legs. Men shouted prayers in Yoruba, Hausa, and broken English all at once. A drum toppled over, still vibrating faintly, as if mocking the chaos it had announced moments earlier. Femi could not move. His knees locked, his breath trapped somewhere between his chest and throat. What lay beside the torn bag was round and heavy, matted with rice grains that clung to dark, tangled hair. A human head. The eyes half open, the mouth frozen in a shape that looked like a question no one wanted answered. No, 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 Femi whispered. Someone vomited behind him. Another person collapsed, convulsing. The smell, God, the smell rose fully now, no longer hiding behind metal and dust. It was unmistakable. Blood. Fresh and thick. Cover it, someone yelled. A trader threw a piece of cloth, but it slipped, revealing more of the face. A woman recognized the scar near the eyebrow and screamed louder than anyone else. "That is Sola. That is my cousin." The market exploded again. Femi staggered backward, bumping into a stack of rice bags. As he steadied himself, his palm pressed into one of them. Warm. The warmth crawled into his skin like fever. His eyes widened. "No, not again," he muttered, moving to another bag. Warm. Another. Warm. Fear rose in his throat, bitter and choking. This was not just one bag. It could not be. His mind raced, piecing together the strange heaviness, the smell he had dismissed earlier, the old woman's warning. Food given with blood will return with tears. A loud thud interrupted his thoughts. Chief Adedeo had dropped to his knees. At first, people thought he was praying. Some even shouted, "Baba is asking God for mercy." But when he tried to stand and failed, when his hands clawed at the ground like a blind man searching for something lost, they knew something was wrong. "Water," someone shouted. But Chief Adedeo's mouth hung open, lips trembling, eyes darting wildly as if he were seeing things no one else could. He shook his head repeatedly. "No. This is not how it happens," he muttered. "This is not today." Femi watched him, aura mixing with a strange realization. The billionaire did not look shocked. He looked afraid. Police sirens wailed in the distance, growing louder by the second. Someone had already called them, maybe several people at once. Phones were raised, recording despite the screams. In minutes, this would be everywhere. The men in dark clothes moved swiftly. They surrounded Chief Adedeo, lifting him with unnatural ease. One of them bent toward the spilled head, his face expressionless, and covered it properly this time. When he straightened, his eyes met Femi's. Cold. Empty. Knowing. Femi felt a sudden dizziness, the ground tilting beneath him. Images flashed through his mind, forest, firelight, chanting voices, red-stained hands pressing rice into sacks. He clutched his head, gasping. "Femi," someone shouted, but the voice sounded far away. He collapsed. When Femi opened his eyes, the world was quieter, but not calmer. He lay on a bench inside a small clinic near the market. The smell of disinfectant mixed with sweat and fear. A ceiling fan creaked overhead, struggling against the heat. Outside, voices murmured urgently. "What happened?" Femi croaked. A nurse rushed to his side. "Easy. You fainted." "Where's the rice?" he asked. She hesitated. "The police sealed the market. They took everything." Femi's stomach twisted. "Everything." "All the bags," she confirmed. "Even the ones already shared." A chill ran through him. Too late. Some people had already gone home. Some had already cooked. The door opened, and Aya Monarchy walked in. The nurse stiffened. "Mama, visiting time." "I won't stay long," the old woman said, her voice firmer than her body suggested. She turned to Femi, her cloudy eyes piercing. "You touched them, didn't you?" Femi swallowed. "The bags." She nodded. "That is why you are still alive." His heart pounded. Alive. She sat slowly. This rice was not food. It was sealing. Blood mixed with grain binds the giver and the receiver. The head you saw was not a mistake. Femi shook his head violently. "No. No. People saw it." "The police?" "The spirits do not fear police," she cut in. "Only exposure." He remembered Chief Adedeo's words. This is not how it happens. What happens? Femi whispered. Aya Monarchy leaned closer. Every year, a sacrifice is made. The blood is hidden in gifts freely given. Hunger opens the door. Gratitude locks it. Femi felt bile rise in his throat. So everyone who took the rice has eaten part of a vow, she finished. Outside, a loud argument erupted. Femi recognized the voice of Mama Kemi. They collected my rice too. That is wickedness. Another woman screamed, my pot is already on fire at home. The old woman stood. This Christmas will not pass quietly. As she turned to leave, Femi grabbed her wrist. What about Chief Adedeo? Aya Monarchy paused. A tree that grows by blood will fall by blood. She left. Moments later, the police arrived to question Femi. They asked what he saw, what he smelled, what he touched. He answered mechanically, his mind replaying the warmth of the bags over and over. By evening, the news broke. Head found in Christmas rice donation in Ogun State. Phones buzzed non-stop. Videos spread. Rumors multiplied faster than truth. Some said the head disappeared at the station. Others claimed the billionaire had been taken to a private hospital. A few whispered that his convoy vanished into the forest instead of heading to town. Night fell heavy and restless. In homes across Ogun State, pots boiled uneasily. Some families argued, unsure whether to eat the rice they had received before the police arrived. Hunger won in many houses. As Femi lay awake in his room, sweat soaking his sheets, he heard distant screams, real or imagined, he could not tell. When sleep finally dragged him under, it did not bring rest. It brought visions. A forest shrine lit by red flames. A kneeling man in white agbada. Sacks of rice arranged like offerings. A voice whispering. Greed feeds on the hungry. Femi woke screaming. And somewhere, far beyond the town lights, something ancient had begun to stir, angry that its secret had been exposed. The forest did not appear in dreams the way it did in daylight. In daylight, the Ibuaran forest on the border of Ogun State looked harmless, tall trees, winding footpaths, birds calling from hidden branches. But in Femi's dreams, the forest breathed. Roots twisted like veins beneath the earth, and the trees leaned inward as if listening. He stood barefoot on damp soil, unable to move. Red flames flickered ahead, forming a circle of light in the darkness. Drums thudded slowly, not with hands, but with hearts. Each beat echoed inside his chest. Boom. 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 A voice spoke behind him. You are seeing what hunger refused to see. Femi turned. Chief Adedeo Ekinwell stood there, but not as the billionaire Ogun State adored. His agbada was gone. He wore only a wrapper stained dark at the edges. His face looked younger, desperate, hollowed by need. The forest shifted. And the dream became a memory that was not Femi's. Years earlier, before the convoys, before the rice, before the name Chief, Adedeo had been a nobody. He lived in a single room near Abeokuta, sharing a leaking roof with debt and shame. Every business he touched failed. Every connection promised help and disappeared. His wife sold vegetables by the roadside, her hands roughened by poverty, her eyes heavy with silent disappointment. One night, after creditors banged on his door until dawn, Adedeo walked into the forest. He did not know where he was going. He only knew he could not return home empty again. That was when he met Baba Alejiki. The old man sat beside a dying fire, his skin the color of old bark, his eyes reflecting flames that were not there. He smiled as if he had been expecting Adedeo all along. You want money, Baba Alejiki said. Adideo froze. I didn't say. You don't have to, the old man replied. The forest hears desperation. Adideo fell to his knees. I would do anything. The old man laughed softly. Everyone says that. Few understand it. The shrine was hidden deep within the forest, beyond paths hunters avoided. Skulls lined the earth, not arranged in fear, but in order. The air smelled of iron and old smoke. Baba Alejiki spoke the rules calmly, as though discussing market prices. Wealth is not created, he said. It is transferred. Adideo listened, trembling. To receive abundance, the old man continued, you must feed what gives it. Once every year. Freely. Publicly. With joy. With joy. Adideo whispered. Yes. The gift must be received with gratitude. Hunger opens the door. Celebration seals it. What is the sacrifice? Adideo asked. Baba Alejiki smiled. Human essence. Blood and breath. Adideo vomited. I can't. You already came, Baba Alejiki cut in. That means you already agreed. The first sacrifice was close. A distant cousin. A struggling man who trusted Adideo completely. They shared palm wine. Laughter. Promises of business partnership. The forest swallowed his scream. The blood was collected carefully, mixed with herbs, and sealed, not poured on the ground. Spilling blood wastes power, Baba Alejiki explained. You must hide it in abundance. Sacks of rice appeared at the shrine the next morning, their grains white and innocent. Food feeds life, Baba Alejiki said. When blood enters it, life follows. Adideo shook as he watched the ritual completed. His hands never stopped trembling. Not even when the first money arrived. It arrived fast. Contracts fell into his lap. Deals closed without effort. Numbers on screens grew faster than his fear could keep up. Within months, he moved out of the single room. Within a year, he owned houses he never entered. People called him lucky. He called himself blessed. Back in the present, Femi's dream shifted again. He saw Christmases passing like pages turning. Each year, a sacrifice. Each year, rice. Each year, the crowd grew larger, the hunger deeper, the gratitude louder. Churches praised him. Mosques prayed for him. Politicians bowed. The ritual evolved. Baba Alejiki grew older. His voice weaker. The vow must continue even when I am gone, he warned. The gift must never stop. What if I stop? Adideo asked. The old man's eyes darkened. Then everything you have will return to the forest, with interest. Femi saw the road that had been broken. The sacrifice chosen for that year had been wrong. A man marked by protection. A bloodline watched. The shrine resisted. This one is dangerous, one of the ritual men warned. But Adideo insisted. Greed had grown louder than fear. No one will notice, he said. It's just one more head. The chants faltered. The fire flickered. And for the first time in decades, the ritual failed to seal properly. Blood remained visible. The forest rejected the gift. Femi jolted awake, gasping. Morning light crept through his window, pale and uncertain. His body shook violently, as though the forest still held him. On his phone, dozens of missed calls. Messages. Voice notes. One headline stood out. Police search for missing shrine in Ogun forest as billionaire disappears. Femi's hands trembled. The ritual was real. The rice was never charity. And whatever had been fed for years was now starving. Outside, a low rumble echoed, thunder, though the sky was clear. Or something else, waking. By the third day after the market incident, Ogun State no longer slept. Fear moved faster than truth. Churches organized midnight prayers that lasted till dawn. Imams warned their congregations to avoid gifts from unknown sources. In some homes, pots of rice sat untouched, covered with cloths like corpses no one dared to bury. Others were not so lucky. It began with Mama Sadiya, a pepper seller who had rushed home early that Christmas morning before the police arrived. By evening, her neighbors heard her screaming. They found her rolling on the floor, clawing at her stomach, crying that something was eating her from inside. She died before midnight. The doctor wrote food poisoning. The elders whispered otherwise. Femi heard about it while sitting in his dark room, knees drawn to his chest, replaying the visions from the forest over and over. Each time he closed his eyes, he saw rice turning red. Each time he tried to pray, his words came back to him soaked in blood. His phone buzzed. Unknown number. He hesitated, then answered. Femi Adebola, a man said calmly. You touched the bags. Femi's heart slammed. Who is this? A pause. Breathing on the line, slow, controlled. You were not meant to. The call ended. Outside, a power outage swallowed the street. Darkness fell thick and sudden, broken only by distant generator hums and uneasy murmurs. Femi locked his door, his hands shaking so badly the key slipped twice. Then the knock came. 3 slow knocks. He did not respond. Another 3 knocks. Femi, a familiar voice called. It's me. He recognized it. Colonel, one of the men who helped distribute the rice. Femi opened the door a crack. Colonel's face looked wrong. Pale. His eyes bloodshot. They are coming for him, Colonel whispered, stepping inside without invitation. Who? Femi asked. Colonel laughed weakly. The ones that made him. Before Femi could ask more, Colonel collapsed. By the time Femi dragged him onto the bed, the smell hit him, metallic, thick. Blood seeped from Colonel's nose and ears. His lips moved soundlessly, then finally formed words. The bag fell because the forest rejected it. His body went still. Across Ogun State, events unfolded like pieces of a curse finally freed. At a private hospital in Abeokuta, Chief Adideo Ekinwe regained consciousness screaming. He thrashed violently, shouting names no one recognized. They want it back, he cried. I have paid. Every year, I have paid. Doctors restrained him. Sedatives failed. Machines malfunctioned around him. Monitors flickering, lights bursting. A nurse swore she saw muddy footprints leading from his bed to the wall. Then he vanished. CCTV cameras went blank at the same time. Guards claimed they heard drums, not from outside, but from inside their heads. When power returned, the bed was empty. Only red footprints remained, stopping abruptly in the middle of the floor. The police held an emergency meeting. The head found in the rice had been identified. Sola Ajayi, a commercial motorcyclist, reported missing 3 days earlier. His family swore he had gone to meet a business contact, promising a loan. The last call on his phone. Chief Adideo Ekinwe. A task force was assembled to search the forest around Ogun State. They did not return whole. 3 officers came back at dawn, eyes wide, uniforms torn, weapons abandoned. One could no longer speak. Another kept muttering, it was already waiting. The 3rd officer collapsed and died before sunset. The forest search was cancelled. That night, Femi could no longer stay indoors. Every shadow felt alive. Every sound carried meaning. He wrapped himself in a jacket and followed instinct rather than logic, his feet carrying him toward the edge of town. Toward Aya Monarch's hut. She was already waiting. You broke the seal, she said calmly, stirring something over a small fire. By touching the bag. I didn't mean to, Femi cried. Meaning does not matter to old powers, she replied. Only action. He fell to his knees. People are dying. She nodded. Because the spell that fed on hunger has been exposed. It no longer hides. She handed him a small gourd. Inside, a thick black liquid sloshed. What is this? Femi asked. Protection, she said. Temporary. From what? She met his eyes. From the ones who need a replacement. Femi's blood ran cold. Replacement. The vow demands blood every Christmas, she continued. It does not care who provides it, only that the balance is restored. Thunder rolled across the sky again, louder this time. Somewhere deep in the forest, drums began to beat, not in celebration, but in hunger. And Femi understood then, with terrifying clarity. The bag that fell had not only revealed the truth. It had announced an invitation. The first night after Connell's death, Femi did not sleep. He sat on the floor of Aya Monarch's hut, the small gourd clutched tightly in his palm. The liquid inside paused faintly, warm like breath. Outside, the forest hummed with unfamiliar sounds, too coordinated to be insects, too patient to be animals. This will not last forever, Aya Monarchy said, without looking at him. Protection borrowed must be returned. Femi swallowed. What do they want from me? She finally faced him. Truth. The hut fell silent. Even the fire stilled, as though listening. They want someone who has seen, she continued. Someone the rice touched but did not claim. Someone whose eyes are open. Femi's heart pounded. I didn't ask for this. No one asked for calling, she replied softly. Just before dawn, sleep claimed him, not gently, but like a hand pulling him underwater. He stood again at the market square of Itolican, but it was empty now. The stalls were broken, roofs collapsed, rice scattered across the ground like snow. The sky above was dark red, heavy with clouds that did not move. A voice rose behind him. Do you see what hunger hides? Femi turned. The victims stood there. Men. Women. Young. Old. Their bodies were whole, but their eyes were deep pits of sorrow. Rice spilled endlessly from their palms, falling through them and vanishing before it touched the ground. We were given, one said. We were promised, said another. We were shared, a third whispered. Femi dropped to his knees. I'm sorry. A woman stepped forward, Mama Sadia. Her stomach was swollen, her eyes empty. We ate death, she said calmly. Because hunger makes death look like food. The sky cracked open. From above, sacks of rice rained down, each bursting midair. Blood poured out instead of grains, soaking the ground, forming rivers that flowed toward the forest. Femi screamed. He woke with a violent jerk, knocking the gourd from his hand. The black liquid spilled across the floor, sizzling faintly before disappearing into the earth. Aya Monarchy stood over him, her face grave. They showed you, didn't they? He nodded, shaking. They showed me everything. As the sun rose, the truth unfolded faster than anyone expected. A handwritten letter surfaced, delivered anonymously to a radio station in Abeokuta. The handwriting was shaky, rushed, soaked with desperation. It was Chief Adideo's confession. He admitted to the ritual. The shrine. The yearly sacrifice hidden in charity. He named names, politicians, businessmen, religious leaders who had accepted money and turned away from questions. The radio host wept on air while reading it. By noon, Ogun State was on fire. Protests erupted. Churches closed their gates. Markets shut down. People burned bags of rice in the streets, chanting prayers and curses at the same time. But the letter had come too late. The vow was already broken. And broken vows do not forgive. That evening, Femi was taken to the police station, not as a suspect, but as a witness. Inside the interrogation room, the lights flickered. Officers exchanged uneasy glances. One of them leaned forward. "Femi," he said quietly, "you collapsed at the market. Since then, you've been mentioned, by name." "Mentioned by who?" Femi asked. The officer hesitated. "By people who are dead." Cold spread through Femi's veins. "They appear in dreams," the officer continued. "They say you know how to stop it." Femi shook his head violently. "I don't." The officer sighed. "Then we are all in trouble." That night, the visions returned, stronger. Femi saw Chief Adideo kneeling in the forest shrine, surrounded by faceless figures. His wealth piled behind him like mountains of ash. "I gave them everything," the billionaire sobbed. "Why are you taking it back?" A voice answered, not loud, but absolute. "Because you fed us with lies." The ground opened. Femi woke screaming as thunder shook the town. Rain fell, red at first, then clear. Aya Monarch's voice echoed in his mind. "Truth is the only offering they accept now." As dawn broke, Femi understood his role. He was not meant to replace the sacrifice. He was meant to expose it completely. An exposure, he knew, would demand a price. One that might cost him his life. The day the truth became public, Ogun State held its breath. By morning, the confession letter had spread beyond radio. Screenshots flooded WhatsApp groups. Bloggers reposted it with shaking hands and dramatic captions. Television stations debated its authenticity, but no one denied the fear crawling through the streets. Because something was happening. And it was happening too fast. Banks were the first to fall. At exactly 9:17 a.m., Chief Adideo Ekinwell's accounts, local and foreign, froze simultaneously. Not gradually. Not suspiciously. Completely. Billions vanished from ledgers like chalk washed off by rain. Bank officials swore it was a system error. IT experts swore it was impossible. By noon, the buildings he owned began to crack. One of his luxury hotels in Sagamu developed deep fractures along its walls. Guests ran out screaming as chandeliers crashed to the floor. In Abeokuta, a mansion that had stood for 20 years collapsed inward without warning, killing no one but leaving behind a smell witnesses later described as old blood. By evening, people stopped calling it coincidence. They called it collection. Femi watched it all from Aya Monarch's hut, his phone vibrating non-stop. Messages came from people he barely knew. "Is it true? Did you really touch the rice? They say the spirits are angry." He did not reply. "You have started something that cannot be stopped," Aya Monarchy said, grinding herbs with slow precision. "Now the forest is reclaiming its death. Will it end?" Femi asked. She did not answer immediately. "Nothing ends cleanly," she finally said. That night, Chief Adideo Ekinwell was found. Not in the forest. Not in hiding. But sitting calmly at the gate of the old market square in Itolican, the very place where the bag had torn open. He looked nothing like the man Ogun State once praised. His agbada hung loosely on his frame, stained and torn. His hair was completely white. His eyes were sunken, hollowed by terror and sleeplessness. He sat barefoot on the cold ground, hands resting on his knees like a man waiting for judgment. When the police approached, he did not resist. "I'm done running," he said quietly. "They followed me everywhere." "Who?" an officer asked. Chief Adideo laughed, a broken sound. "What do you think fed me all these years?" They took him into custody. The crowd that gathered did not cheer. They watched in silence, fear outweighing anger. Mothers pulled their children closer. Old men shook their heads slowly. A god had fallen. And gods do not fall without consequences. At the station, Chief Adideo asked for one thing. "To see the boy," he said. Femi was brought in just before midnight. The room smelled of sweat, fear, and disinfectant. Chief Adedeo looked up when Femi entered, and for the first time since the story began, tears filled the billionaire's eyes. "I tried to stop," he whispered. "But once you feed something long enough, it learns your taste." Femi said nothing. "They told me it was charity," Chief Adedeo continued desperately. "That the hunger of the people would dilute the blood. That joy would blind the spirits." "You knew?" Femi said quietly. "Yes," the man sobbed. "And I still did it." The lights flickered. The temperature dropped. Chief Adedeo froze mid-breath. "Do you hear that?" he asked. Femi listened. Drums. Slow. Heavy. Coming from everywhere and nowhere. "They are here," Chief Adedeo whispered. "They want the last thing I owe." Before anyone could react, he screamed. Not in pain, but in recognition. The lights went out. When they came back on, Chief Adedeo was slumped forward in his chair, eyes wide open, mouth frozen in a silent plea. There were no wounds on his body. But his shadow on the wall was gone. Doctors later said his heart simply stopped. Aya Monarchy said otherwise. "They collected the debt," she murmured when Femi told her. "But not the interest." In the days that followed, names began to fall. A senator collapsed during a Thanksgiving service. A popular pastor fled the country overnight. A local government chairman was found wandering naked near the forest, repeating one sentence. The rice was not food. Shrines burned. Some by angry youths. Others by lightning from clear skies. The forest remained silent. Too silent. Femi knew what that meant. Something had been satisfied. Something else was still watching. As he stood outside that night, staring at the dark line of trees beyond the town, Aya Monarchy spoke behind him. "The Godfather has fallen," she said. "Now the people must choose whether to remember or repeat." Femi closed his eyes. Because deep down, he feared the answer. 5 years passed. Time moved on the surface of Ogun State, but beneath it, the memory never slept. The market square at Itoliken was rebuilt, yet it never returned to what it once was. The stores were new, the roofs stronger, the paths wider, but the laughter was cautious now. People no longer rushed toward free things. They asked questions. They washed hands. They listened to warnings. And every Christmas, when December winds carried the smell of celebration, elders reminded the young ones. Not every gift is a blessing. Femi Adebola no longer lived in Itolikan. After Chief Adedeo's death, after the arrest and disappearances, after the protests and prayers, he left quietly. No celebration followed him. No farewell ceremony. Only Aya Monarchy stood at the edge of the town when he departed, pressing a small string of cowries into his palm. "For remembrance," she said. And restraint. Femi traveled across Ogun State and beyond, not as a preacher, not as a prophet, but as a witness. He spoke in youth halls, community centers, night vigils, and radio programs. He never exaggerated. He never dramatized. He simply told the truth. How hunger can silence wisdom. How desperation can dress evil in generosity. How blood, once mixed with kindness, poisons entire generations. Some believed him. Others laughed until they remembered the market square. The government eventually closed the case. Officially, Chief Adedeo died of cardiac arrest. Officially, the ritual allegations were unproven. Officially, no shrine was ever found. But unofficially, people knew. They knew because certain families never recovered from that Christmas. Children who ate the rice fell ill for years. Marriages broke without explanation. Nightmares plagued entire households, dreams of rice pouring endlessly from open mouths, choking the dreamers awake. Doctors had no answers. The elders did. Every December, a strange rule is observed in Itolikan. No anonymous food donations. No public sharing without known sources. No gifts accepted from men whose wealth cannot be traced. Churches now pray before collecting offerings from strangers. Mosques verify donors. Market women inspect rice bags, breaking seals, smelling grains, washing them thoroughly, sometimes refusing them altogether. Hunger still exists. But blind gratitude does not. One Christmas Eve, years later, Femi returned briefly to eat Olican. He stood alone in the market square just before dawn, the place quiet and misty. He walked to the exact spot where the bag had fallen, where the spell had broken. He closed his eyes. For a moment, he heard drums again, but faint, distant, retreating. Aya monarchy had passed on by then. Her hut stood empty, reclaimed slowly by vines and earth. But her voice lived on in Femi's memory. Evil survives where questions are forbidden. As the sun rose, traders arrived. Children laughed cautiously. Life continued. Femi turned to leave. Before he did, he looked back at the square one last time and whispered, not as a warning, but as a truth earned through blood and loss. Some rice feeds the body. Others feed the grave. And that is why, when Christmas comes, and a stranger offers free gifts without a story, without accountability, without truth, you should think twice. Because not everything given in love was prepared in love. And not every bag of rice is meant to be eaten.